Good morning and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. And as I was thinking about what I would say, I really thought about the topic being very apt, resilient CFO. And this gave me an opportunity to reflect on my own life and think about how have I built resilience. And given the turmoil, the uncertainty globally and in our country, this is really a very important attitude and skill set to develop. So when we think of resilience, what do we think of? I think we think of adaptability, openness, listening, curiosity. It's not about being rigid, closed, or fixed. So how does one cultivate this in today's world? I will share with you my own journey of when I was 19-year-old and I wanted to go abroad because my best friend was going for her undergrad to the US, and we all get inspired by our best friends. So I spoke to my dad, and my family said, "You're too young, America's too far away, the values are very different, go for your master's." Somehow I did not give up, and I had my first courageous conversation. It's not easy to have a courageous conversation, especially with a dad who comes from the military, and I could feel in my stomach the queasy feeling when I had that conversation. And it took a series of such conversations for my dad to get convinced. Then my khala intervened, and I got a chance to apply, and my dad said, "You could go if you get a scholarship." I went to the US to Mount Holyoke, which is a women's college, and that was an amazing experience because I got to really study and appreciate the US liberal arts education, where I studied art history, philosophy, religion, but like a good Pakistani girl, I majored in economics and international relations. So I stayed on the path, very much traditional. When I came back, I started working with Shahid Kardar, who's the former State Bank governor at Systems Private Limited, in his consulting outfit. My mother would pick and drop me, and many times she would have to wait because my work would finish 5:30, 6:30 as a young analyst. I felt really bad, so I told my mother, "I'll take a rickshaw." I took the rickshaw, and within the first month, I realized the rickshaw took 40% of my salary. This was something that I wanted to change, so I started looking for other options. I wanted to save money, but guess what are the options? Unfortunately, in Pakistan, even then and today, the options for women for affordable, safe transport haven't changed. So I actually then started taking the mini wagon, which used to run from China Chowk, drop me off at Cavalry Ground Phatak. In those days, we didn't have the bridge and all. And then I walked the last 15 minutes home. And that's when I faced street harassment. I never talked about it to my family because I didn't want them to get worried. I didn't want them to stop me. And I want to share this experience because resilience takes a lot out of you. And it's really important for us to build ecosystems where minorities, women, disadvantaged groups can thrive. Because we know this, that societies, companies become stronger, more robust when there are diverse teams. So that was my second lesson of not giving up, staying in the game, and eventually my father got me a car. But not everyone is lucky and privileged to have a car, and I realized that. Fast forward, I went for my master's. I went to the Harvard Kennedy School. I was very lucky. I got a scholarship. And Harvard, you can imagine, was a privilege. I lived in Boston with the Charles River, the blue sky, the clean air. And in a few months, I realized I felt really light. And I realized that as Pakistanis, because we live in a very challenging environment, there's a lot of stress that we have actually ingrained in ourselves. We have learned to deal with it because it's part of our life. So that was one of the best years of my life, learning with great professors, faculty, and with amazing colleagues from all over the world. Post-masters, I landed up in Dubai. Dubai is, and before that, I must share with you that post-Shahid Kardar Saab, I actually joined Kush, which was just starting out, in 2 small rooms, with the idea of giving microloans to women. People said this will fail. This has worked in Bangladesh, India, but Pakistanis, they're a hard nut to crack. You won't get your money back. We started with 100 clients, and by the time I left the organization 12 years later as the CEO, we had grown to 300,000 women, dispersed $200 million, set up 140 branches, from 7 team members grew to 1,000, and with a 99% repayment rate. And this applause is really for the women at the bottom of the pyramid who proved they didn't need charity. They needed an ecosystem which treated them with respect and dignity. They used this money to build micro, small enterprises and paid back. And they used the investment that was emerging to send their children to school, to get better nutrition and education. We know this, that when a woman succeeds, the entire family wins and a nation moves forward. So after Kashf is when I went for Harvard, then I ended up in Dubai. And Dubai, as you know, is not about microfinance. So my challenge at that time was, what do I do? How do I become relevant in this context? And that was very disorienting. Reinvention is a really wonderful word, but reinvention is messy, it's chaotic, and I realized so much of my identity was in being a microfinance person. As I'm sure many of you have your identity in being a CFO or a finance person. And when you don't have that identity, you wonder, who am I? Am I relevant? And how do I begin? Where do I go? So through that process, I did some soul searching, and I then set up Circle as an experiment. And the idea was to economically empower low-income women and to bring skills to them. Because when I started looking at Pakistan, I saw it's a country with young people, and young people don't have skills. And in the pandemic, it became very clear, like you and I, we all jumped on Zoom and Google Meet. There are millions of women in our country who, even if they have internet, don't know how to use it. There are women with smartphones who, at the moment, only use YouTube for watching dramas, maximum to watch a cooking recipe. But the smartphone is a gateway to skills, knowledge, networks. And I have traveled all across the world, all across Pakistan, to villages, to communities, and I tell women when I meet them and I ask them, what do you want? What do you think they say? Anyone from the audience, when I ask women in communities and rural areas, what do you want? What will improve your life? What do you think they ask for? It's one pattern everywhere. They ask for a salai machine. They want a sewing center in their village, in their community. And I tell them, ask for a smartphone. Ask for a tech center. Because in today's world, the sewing machine is actually the smartphone that can create economic opportunities and well-being for you and your family. I'm very blessed that with God's grace and our wonderful partners, we have trained 7,000 low-income women across the country on basic digital literacy. What does that mean? How to switch internet on and off, how to do search, email IDs, Google Map, WhatsApp for Business, Facebook, Insta. This is a time when we don't need to set up stores. Women can sell their products through these tools. And we're seeing fantastic results. We've seen 1,000, 1,500 plus new businesses, micro businesses generated. I still remember from Sialkot, one of the women sharing with me that I felt very useless. My husband is a rickshaw driver, and we barely make ends meet. But after training with Circle, I am now setting up a food business. Another woman shared that I had to always wait for my brother or my father to take my mother to the doctor. Now that I have learned how to use Google Map, I am using that and taking my mother on my own. These are small micro shifts happening in the communities. Our goal, with the support of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, British Asian Trust, Engro Foundation, HBL, who are all our partners, is to now scale up. We need scalable solutions, creating impact, putting women communities at the center. Because as I said, when a woman grows, a family thrives and a nation moves forward. I have also learned that resilience requires you to have allies. Doing it alone is risky and lonely. So I have built allies in my life, and I'm sure you have allies that you can rely on. And lastly, I would say self-care. being a resilient CFO, a resilient person, self-care. What do I mean by self-care? It's really about investing in your sleep, in the food that you eat, nutrition, exercise, and having a sanctuary for yourself. Because a career is a long-term game. It's not 5 years, it's not 10 years. So how do you stay in the game and thrive? Not just survive, but thrive. And for that, having 2, 3 confidants, friends that you can rely on, who you can trust, who can be anchors in your life, having safe spaces for conversations, having good practices like yoga, meditation, exercise, spending time in nature. I've just come back from Chitral, where we launched our digital literacy program with 40 women. But every day in the morning, I had a chance to meditate, and every evening, I was sitting and seeing the stars, and it was so good for the soul. So I think that's really important we do that. And I would like to end by saying that as CFOs, I'm sure you have a very clear path. But I would urge you to be a little bit more adventurous. Look at the startup landscape. Can you be part of that? And what is a problem in the country that you could help solving with your expertise and experience? Look at the nonprofit sector. How can you add value there? Maybe look at giving volunteering time. But I think these are exciting times in terms of solving pressing challenges, whether for Pakistan or for the country, where your skills and expertise can be very valuable. In terms of my call to action, I would like you to consider if you would like to set up an upskilling fund. Maybe it's with your, all the CFOs coming together or ICAP, but skills is really important to invest in. 2025, we know 50% of global workforce is going to need reskilling. So how can this cohort work towards that? Secondly, organizations like Circle do financial literacy for low-income women. Perhaps some of you would like to be a part of that movement and bring financial literacy, financial discipline, saving, how to understand the financial landscape to low-income households, especially women. And lastly, my request would be, I hope next time when you host this conference, I'll see more women here. Because that, I think, is really critical. And I know there are many women who are part of this profession. So we must bring them forward. We must help them succeed. Because we know this, that when teams are diverse, there is more innovation, there's more robust conversations, and there's greater sustainability. Thank you so much for having me.